So folks, do you believe that Joe Biden would do more for the American people in sending out stimulus checks? I do. And finally, the lawmakers are ready to address the Social Security's biggest issue. It's Chuck Schumer. He has announced the next Senate hearings of the proposed UP bill, and Democrats are insistent on extending Social Security and increasing benefits for all recipients. An overall increase of $2,400 in benefits is being considered. And Chuck Schumer announced the Senate will hold hearings to expose the true impact of House Republicans trying to lift the debt ceiling. In a letter to lawmakers, Schumer called it the Default on America Act, which passed the Republican House, said it was hastily drafted. And now Schumer told reporters today the Senate will show the public how they feel about this and what the bill is truly about. Beginning this week, committees will hold hearings to expose the true impact of this reckless legislation on everyday Americans. The Budget Committee will hold a hearing on the Default of America Act this Thursday. According to Schumer, Republicans' proposals offers only two choices. Schumer stated either default on the debt or default on America. Republicans and Democrats are locked in intense debate over how to address this threat, which could hit as soon as June if the borrowing limit is not raised. The White House has insisted on a clean increase, while the House Republican bill will raise the debt ceiling and cut spending. As it goes in politics these days, lawmakers are naturally at odds over many issues, including the best way to save Social Security, with many Democrats favoring heavier taxes on the rich. Now, the Social Security trust funds are set to run dry by 2034, which would just cause a big cut to scheduled Social Security benefits. Lawmakers have therefore been thinking about more serious legislation and other means to shore up the program. Given that time is quickly passing, lawmakers are starting to move on bills just to raise debt ceiling, because if the U.S. were to actually default on its debt, it would be a disaster. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy also proposed a bill that would impose trillions of dollars worth of spending cuts. But there are other bills proposed that may actually save Social Security. Bernie Sanders has actually said this, and he has proposed that 36 lawmakers have reintroduced a bill in the House of Representatives and Senate to extend the solvency of Social Security for 75 more years and increase the benefits too. Sanders has introduced similar versions of the bill, including in 2022, but reintroduced the legislation at a time when Social Security is a hot topic. Currently, Social Security faces insolvency in 2035. If that were to happen, the system could only continue funding about 80% of its scheduled benefits. That bill would extend the solvency of Social Security for 75 years by lifting the income cap on Social Security taxes and subjecting all households making over $250,000 to the payroll tax. Sanders said in a news release, at a time when nearly half of older Americans had no retirement savings and almost 50% of the nation's seniors are trying to survive on an income of less than $25,000 a year, our job is not to cut Social Security. In his State of the Union address, Joe Biden and some Republicans said that they want Medicare and Social Security to sunset every 5 years and require congressional reapproval. But in response to accusations, Rick Scott announced a bill to increase funding for Social Security and Medicare by making cuts to many programs. So what do you think will happen, everybody, to America's Lifeline?
But it comes to a time when you just have to. The owner of a long-standing butcher shop nearby said, quote, "We're all holding our breath." That goes for small business owners and shoppers alike. One new poll found that 94% of Americans are upset or concerned about inflation. And they're overwhelmingly not happy with what the Biden administration is doing about it. Just 28% of the country approved of President Biden's handling of inflation. The worst part is that this pain was certainly not inevitable. American families could have been spared all of this. Last spring, Democrats had inherited an economy that was ready for a historic comeback. Even top liberal economists such as Larry Summers and Jason Furman, both senior advisors to the Obama White House, warned that Democrats' $2 trillion spending binge was
helping move goods faster from factory floors to store shelves. In addition to the companies I mentioned, I will also hear from ByHeart operation out of Pennsylvania. We need more new entrants in the infant formula market like ByHeart. And finally, we're going to hear from the Surgeon General on what he's doing to help families get information they can trust
The IRS has just announced that there are some Americans that are currently eligible for another $1,400 stimulus check. Governors across the country are planning to send out $200 inflation relief checks to drivers. Senate Democrats are proposing sending a rebate check to drivers across the state to help with the rising cost of gas. Under a bill filed this week, all adults with a valid North Carolina driver's license as of March 31st will get a check or a debit card for $200. Senate Democrat also said in an official statement that the top issue that we're hearing is about food prices and gas prices. This is something the state can't afford to address. Democrats propose using $1.3 billion of the state's anticipated $4.2 billion surplus this year to pay for the plan. According to AAA, the average price for a gallon of regular gas was almost $4.36. That's $1.45 higher than it was a year ago. The state economist for North Carolina says he expects prices likely will climb higher. The relief bill from Democrats comes as Republican leaders in the General Assembly and the Democratic governor weigh on what to do next with the budget surplus. Republicans have not said yet what specific changes they want to make the state budget. House Speaker Tim Moore recently said that discussions about further tax relief are underway, and Governor Cooper's spokesperson has said high gas prices continue to hurt families across the country, and this is one way to help ease the burden. We will carefully review the legislation, and he looks forward to upcoming budget. Now, getting a tax refund is a very important thing this year, as millions of people continue to face financial difficulties. According to CBS News, 3 of 4 taxpayers typically receive a check from the IRS after they file their tax return. But this year, tax experts warn that some people may receive a smaller check than normal. The biggest issue that could impact tax refunds is the enhanced child tax credit. People will receive tax refunds if they've paid more to the IRS throughout the year than they owe. The tax agency then cuts a check for the difference. There are also many taxpayers that can also claim tax credits, which are a dollar-for-dollar reduction in the amount you owe to the IRS. These credits are typically aimed at specific groups of taxpayers: parents, students, or low-income workers. Under the President Biden's American Rescue Plan, the child tax credit was expanded from $2,000 to $3,600 for children under 6. So that's because half of the expanded credit was paid out in advance through monthly checks from July to December. At the same time, there are some parents and taxpayers who could end up with bigger tax refunds. Some people may be likely to see a bigger refund in early 2022. That's because the IRS based its eligibility for the advanced child tax credit payments, as well as the third stimulus check, on your 2019 to 2020 return. Families with babies or children born will be able to claim the full enhanced child tax credit on their 2021 tax return. There are some proposed changes to the next fourth stimulus package that Congress is debating right now. Economists and lawmakers have said this change might financially impact millions of people.
Plans for a third flight with Bubs Australia, and the CEO of Bubs, Christy Carr, is with us today, virtually today. This flight would bring 4.6 million bottles of infant formula and pave the way for up to 27.5 million total bottles of